close that. And let me see chat. Let me see chat. Okay, so like other Stoicism Stream specials, on top of talking about self-help life advice strats that are just general enough to apply to whatever might be bothering you today, or tomorrow, or yesterday, or a little, or a lot, this stream is going to double function like you, chatter, are just hanging out and drinking coffee with me and talking about our brains and how they work. I've set up a link to an anonymous sign-up list feedback site that you can plug questions into anytime that you have a question about anything, in case you want to ask something, but it might be sensitive to you, or you don't want it associated with your Twitch username. Links are pinned, like on screen, so you can also type in !AMA on Twitch. This link won't go away after stream. So if you have any question about anything, anytime in future, just drop it in there and I should be able to reply to it directly. I'm going to occasionally stop during stream to check and answer questions in real time if I can. What game is this? This do be Final Fantasy XI in the background. It do be. Welcome in, Tunu. Good to see you. For base covering purposes, I'm not accredited, I'm not certified, I'm not licensed anywhere to perform anything psychological or philosophical counseling. I can say that I know they've helped people, according to them, and anything I ever say in a Stoicism stream I've practiced or applied myself to real-world situations. There's no minimum or maximum amount of time that this thing is going to run. Normally, we do have a Core Keeper collab that's happening at 4 p.m., so I'm going to take a break probably around 15 minutes to 20 minutes before to corral people in, get the game booted up, get all the stream titles and such switched over, and then play that for probably a couple to a few hours, depending on how into it I am. I mean, I could be like super into Core Keeper and not know it. I could be like, maybe like Core Keeper is like the best game on the whole planet. And we might even push it to like 4 hours or whatever. It's like Saturday, right? We'll take a 15-minute break to do that when the time comes. Otherwise, a lot of this is going to feel heavy or intense. If you have any questions about anything we go over after the stream ends, reach out to me on Discord and I'll get back to you on ASAP. I'm going to type in socials into the chat now. Lastly, why am I doing this? It's because I owe a debt. I owe this movement, I owe the philosophy, these people from thousands of years ago for who I am and the belief that I can actually become the type of person that I wanted to be since I was a kid through my own efforts. I owe it to the people going through what I did the majority of my life, hopefully to give them the tools they need to reclaim themselves before they feel completely, utterly, constantly lost or alone like I did. It is a goal of mine to stream part-time, and if we get there, to stream full-time, so that I have as many opportunities as possible to impact people that are suffering like that. If I continue to help even one person with every stream, I consider accomplishing my core goals, no matter how much or how little money flows through the channel, or whether I float 1 million followers or 1,000. I'm surprised that Stoic isn't at the Sanctuary of Zeta for the backdrop. I'm so proud of you for knowing what that is. And I did think about Sanctuary of Zeta. It's a good backdrop. The only issue that I have with it is that it's difficult to get a good angle on all the trees. And there's stuff there that still aggroes me, even though I'm 75. I think, if I remember correctly. Other times we go to whatever that place is, that's in the Chains of Promethea area with the waterfall. That's also a good one. I like how desolate, I like how desolate Zarkabard is. Because it's very centering to me, and also you have this cool Aurora Borealis shimmering effect that's coming out of the ground. COP has some great zones. It absolutely does. So what is Stoicism? I'm gonna try to make sure that this isn't as dry as possible. I'm gonna make sure that this is interesting to you. Stoicism is an ancient Greco-Roman philosophy that drills in your head that not only is it possible to be happy purely from being a good person, but that it's the only true or lasting way according to them. It asserts that doing the right thing for its own sake is always worth it, even if no one is around to see it, or even if you risk materially losing a lot. It maintains that there is something outside of you that is stronger, something inside of you that is stronger than everything outside of you, up to and including your own body, and the sense that only it can influence itself. It needs nothing from outside to fuel it, and only with our permission can we ever abandon it. This something is choice and the ability to choose. It goes on to say that there will always be things physically tougher than us, capable of harming or restraining our physical bodies, but nothing affects choice but choice. It's great. It's the greater, more important half of the Stoic idea is that things are co-fated. That the physical nature of the universe makes us that certain things have to happen because the little bits and bobs that make them up, but the exercise of our choice has an influence, whether or not a tiny one. Love the fire toggle, by the way. Thank you. I appreciate you. The clearest example is that we're mortal. Mortals eventually pass away, but whether we call the doctor or not influences when or how that happens. We can't control whether the act is sufficient to deal with whatever the sickness is. We can't control that the doctor is going to be available or understands the problem properly, or so on and so forth. But we can always control the trying. Stoicism, in a word, is about retraining your brain to handle everything. And I mean everything in life by thinking this way, that I will do what I can with the time that I have, and the time that I have it, and the rest will happen the way that it does. It then falls to me again to approach what happens to the best of my ability, and so on and so forth forever. At one time, I didn't used to think this way. I was completely consumed by every negative emotion out there. From the time that I was awake to the time that I went to bed, I was experiencing some kind of internal or external whiplash from things that were happening to me or around me, and some life events were so lengthy or severe, I became mute, so I didn't drop attention to myself, whether positive or negative. This chased me all the way through college, where I was forced to take an intro to philosophy class. I had the culturally instilled idea that philosophy was nothing but the idea that the table that you're looking at might not be the same table I'm looking at because of differences in light, or how do we know that we're not dreaming right now and the dream world is the real one? Or how do we know that we're not surrounded by giant invisible spaghetti monsters at all times? And for a large part of the opening weeks of that class, it really did seem like that. It wasn't until the professor started talking randomly about somebody named Epictetus, who said the sorts of things like I did in the very beginning. I kicked it back out as very nice sounding, but I thought, okay, no one actually thinks like that. Some months later, I was predictably stewing in my emotions in my dorm. My roommate was out. Again, I thought that this is just how life is. Who says otherwise? And the Epictetus guy did. I grabbed the Intro to Philosophy book and was determined to read through it, thinking I really didn't have anything to lose. Interestingly, I avoided the Epictetus section, mostly because I was simultaneously afraid that it both means something and wouldn't mean anything, and that the resonance I felt in class that day might have been a fluke. So much of the book was dry, owing at least a little bit to the bad translations and incomplete sections, but I finally reached the Epictetus bit. It didn't really tell me who he was, or that he was something called a Stoic. I didn't actually know what Stoicism was for months after deciding to read the section of Epictetus for an hour a day, every day, for a few months. The very first time I read it, I felt like I felt something that I hadn't for over a decade at that point, and it was a sense of hope. Hope that I could be more than I felt that I was, and that it was up to me to get to that point, not money, not power, not fame. That it wasn't going to be easy, but that things that are so important hardly ever are, and that I'd need to be prepared to change how I thought, how I spoke, how I acted. That if I wasn't ready to do that, then that was fine. It simply mean that I wasn't going to progress into this person or thing that Stoicism was suggesting that it could be. It felt like a Full Metal Alchemist equivalent exchange. Stoicism, though of not a ancient Greek root, seems to have some similarities to that of my own heritage's philosophies or upbringing. My heritage grew up with an understanding that one's entire life is a series of endless lessons in one way or another, and that every moment, good or bad, is a lesson to be learned. That differences in culture, knowledge, and more from various people, even from across different lands, could benefit us with a perspective we have not known or thought of before, that we are all students of life for a whole life until our very last breath. That's exactly right. Buddhism shares a lot of similarities with Stoicism. Taoism also shares a lot of similarities with Stoicism. Japanese Bushido code also plays with some Stoic ideas and vice versa. And it's also interesting to think that these types of thought processes formed roughly, or started beginning to form roughly around the same time. Anyone can benefit from Stoicism, even a little bit. You do not have to become a Stoic yourself. It's not a cult. And I know that we joke that what I do here is run a cult. I don't run a cult. I'm not a cult leader. All right? You don't have to subscribe to being a Stoic. You don't have to call yourself a Stoic. You don't have to lean ultra hard into it. You don't have to drop whatever it is that you're doing or whatever religion that you practice in order to become one. There's a lot of Christians out there that take a lot from Stoicism. People use Stoicism every day without realizing it by saying what it is, or it's what's on the inside and not what's on the outside, or money can't buy happiness. At what point does philosophy branch into religion? It's an interesting thought. So Stoicism is used a lot in other, or not Stoicism itself, but the mental techniques, the psychological techniques that make Stoicism effective are in other things. Like, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy took its foundation in psychological techniques from Stoicism. It just happens to leave out the part as like the why behind it. It leaves you to determine the why for yourself. In the same respect, people that are religious can borrow a lot from Stoicism or cognitive behavioral therapy happily. And although there is parts of Stoicism that suggest that, like, there is I want to say this the right way. There is a God in Stoicism, but God is not defined in the same way that we think of God when we think of religion. God is nature with a capital N, and comprises everything in the universe. Everything in the universe and everything in it, up to and including us. The ability to reason, which is unique to humans, is approached as if it's a shard of this God. It's this self-determining aspect to ourselves that allows us to understand our own design by whatever the powers that be, if any powers at all. And if there are no powers, if God, whatever its format, is not conscious or sentient, then we're essentially like the luckiest animal on the whole planet because we have something that allows us to be self-directing in a way that other animal types just can't be. CBT Metro, let's go. The awareness may be different and its origin slightly different too. The core understanding is seeking knowledge and improving one's life of a common desire, that of seeking to improve oneself. I unfortunately don't know what my heritage roots are, philosophy-wise. I can only say that we're of an older mental generations pre-war and affected by post-war, taught downwards by the generations before us and passed on. But each of us have their own perspective, experiences, and history that shape our own worldviews, unique to ourselves, yet desire to share understanding, but also learn from one another. Exactly. Even though the vast majority of Stoic texts have been lost, what's left still suggests that even if it has been lost, we have the abilities and capacity to rediscover it all again, reinforced with our improved understanding of the physical world that we're occupying some 2,000 years later since Stoicism's peak. I'll stress again, you don't need to be a Stoic to use Stoicism, or anything that's coming out of me now, or anything that's going to come out of me in the future. It's not a cult, it's not a religion in the typical sense. It's a framework. It's what's described as like a virtue or life philosophy. It's a web, it's a pool that you can draw from, and it'll help you as far as you choose to take it. It asks nothing of you beyond you trying to do your best to help yourself and acknowledge truths in our apparent design by whatever the powers that be, and role models these behaviors to the best of our ability in everything that we do. It can be like a mental toolkit, exactly. Critical thinking is an essential skill to have that you can also learn in philosophy classes or through practice, which applies to many philosophies too. I'm gonna take a drink real quick. So, right from the start, Stoicism stresses that there are things that are in our control and things that are outside of our control. In our control are our desires, fears, judgments, opinions, and habits. In short, anything that depends solely on us. When we focus on goals that are completely within our control, we feel resolute, we feel at peace, we feel content, determined, courageous, and so on. Things outside of our control include everything else. Money, power, fame, health, in short, anything that depends on forces that are outside of us. When we focus on goals outside of our control, we open ourselves up to fear, jealousy, envies, anger, sadness, and so on. The Stoics believe that by trying to think this way in real time to situations we deal with on a daily basis, big or small, we're likely going to commit what they describe as virtuous actions, which are knowingly trying to identify what the right thing to do in a situation is and to do that thing for its own sake. Virtuous actions build up what they describe as rational emotions, which sounds like a silly term, but it describes true and real positive feelings that are the result of us trying to be good people without depending on outside influence in order to do that. The rational emotions were described as joy, caution, and wishing, with joy being a strong feeling of internal good or success, caution being the want to avoid thinking and speaking in any way that's counter to our internal goals, and wishing being a general feeling of benevolence and appreciation towards other people. There's no rational emotion counterpart to outward fear because what we're doing in the Stoic framework is entirely up to us, so no fear can exist unless we invite it in. Yet at the same time, it's important to make mistakes, see what happened from it, learn from it, acknowledge it, and figure out what to do next. That's exactly right. In Stoicism, there is the idea that you are going to misstep a lot because you are essentially retraining the way that your brain works. We are raised under a combination of our parents' influence, or our family's influence at large, our social circles, media. Now, media plays a very big part in our own interpretations of ourselves, and the culture generally that we feel that we're the most closest affiliated with. All affects and determines our general vibe, our ebb and flow of our life, at least early on, with knock-on effects that happen all the way throughout. So when you look around you and you see like media, just using America as an example, when you see media all over the place that makes it seem like you need a great job, you need to have XYZ things, you need to be physically attractive, or a combination of all the above in order to feel good about yourself, at least in part, when you have that hammered into your brain over and over and over again, it feels foreign to be told that being a good person is sufficient, that it is enough, that it's hard to actually make yourself believe that. It's very, very difficult, which is why the Stoics suggest that in order that you have to start somewhere. You are re-sculpting your own brain and the way that it works and the way that it thinks about things that it values. Not like, I would say upwards of like 70-80% of the time, we reflexively think about external things as being good in some way, and if we do not have the thing that we want, then we feel envious of the people that we think have either taken it away from us or have gotten it in place of us, or that or maybe we are more inclined to try to get into the good graces of people that we think will give those things to us, or at the very least won't take those things away from us. Welcome in, Select. Good to see you. Jump now, select, start, Steven. Let me actually take this out of its box. Okay, I'm gonna refresh my marshmallow. So !AMA for a link to send me an anonymous feedback link. This essentially works exactly like the It essentially exactly works like the 3 houses advice box, in that I can't see your name. You don't have to enter in any information. If you do decide to register, then I will be able to see, I won't be able to see your name, but aside from one that you might choose yourself, but I can reply to you. I can reply to you exactly once to whatever message it is that you send me. Welcome in, Tommy. Good to see you. Shout out, Tommy. There we are. All right, let's see. I am human. How do you know if you have critical thinking? Can you tell if others do not? All Stoics believe that everyone has the capacity to become a better person. Whether or not they are given the tools or examples or role models to do that, to become aware that they have this capacity, is not fully up to them. So it's part of our responsibility as practicing Stoics to role model the kinds of behaviors that make it possible for people that lack critical thinking to be aware that there is a better way than just reacting reflexively to everything that's happening around you in kind of like an emotional whiplashy way, the same way that a boat would get rocked by whatever winds are hitting it from whatever angle. It's not easy. Like you cannot take a person and force them to develop critical thinking. It's only something that they can do. It's their choice. If they become aware of this capacity in themselves to take it that far. Most people will not develop actual critical thinking skills the way that I believe that you're suggesting, unless they experience some sort of major event, like a near-on car crash, or like an airplane malfunctioning while in the air, something like that. Something that is so comprehensive and arresting, it forces them to introspect, if only for a moment, on themselves, and that there's more to life than whatever, you know, they happen to be focusing on the most intently in the moment. You're almost 1K, it's happening. True. Hopefully that helps. And refresh it one more time. Okay. What is suffering? If I understand the question the way that you're framing it, suffering, according to Stoicism, is the passions. And what are passions? Passions are typically what we would describe as desires, fears, what is it? Desires, fears, aversion, and I'm forgetting the specific term that they're using. There's 4 of them, right? There's the elation at something that you think is good that's in front of you. There's the desire for those things when they're not there. There's the fear of not having those things, and there's the aversion to avoiding situations where you're going to be put up against things that make you afraid or things that make you uncomfortable. As a Stoic, you are trying to rein in the passions, and this is part of one of the biggest misconceptions about Stoics, even 2,000 years later. The idea that we are unthinking robots, that we are trying to not feel anything, or that from an outside perspective, because you aren't seeing us smiling, or that you aren't seeing us laughing, or that you're not seeing us jump in response to something that you would think would make most people afraid, it does not mean that we aren't feeling anything. What matters to a Stoic is why we're feeling the things that we do, and that includes suffering. In Stoicism, in the ideal example of what a Stoic is or is trying to be, which is something called a sage, which is equivalent to Buddha, you are trying to get yourself to a point where external things have as little input on your psychological profile as you can possibly get it. And that's when things like the rational emotions start coming in, which is when you start with the internal goals and you end with external goals. Now, that said, there is a non-voluntary value judgment that's applied to things that happen to us, purely from an instinctual response type framework, in the sense that if you feel like you're in mortal danger, you only have a second to react to it. The data is collected from your sensory information, And then that combines with a non-voluntary value judgment of I either need to fight or I need to run away. So they actually have an example of this themselves, in that they use an example of a person that is on a ship, like on an old-timey ancient Greek Roman ship, right? And there's a storm, and ships back then did not do well in storms. So they use the example of a Stoic that is part of the crew, or like a passenger, and a storm happens, and the Stoic is like pale. They're pale. They are visibly shaking. They look as though they're going to throw up. And so, you know, in this example, there's another crewmate or passenger that says, "I thought that you Stoics weren't supposed to be afraid of anything." It's the physical response that you cannot help. It's the assent, the agreeance that what is happening is bad and there's nothing that can be done about it. That is what the Stoic is trying to tackle. Absolutely, all the capacity, and in my heritage too, we share that in common, always with wanting to share these tools, yet we always have an understanding that I struggle to express in English as the meaning does not convey the same. But it is that, welcome in really bad white mage, but it is that the heart of a person is difficult to understand, even when the tools are given, as it takes more than just tools alone for a person to take the step to reflect or not, or instead to embrace malice rather than compassion. If suffering stems from compassion, what's the face for it, Franny? If suffering stems from passion, then what is the difference between love and passion? Where does this line between the two stand, and where does it go astray? In Stoicism, Stoics are cosmopolitans, which means that we are supposed to see other people, regardless of how they treat us, as extensions of ourselves, as sharing this unique property of having the ability to reason, and therefore, even if they have no blood relation at all, they are brothers and sisters by design. They might not understand it. They might not ever actually like treat you as if you are family. But it's not up to you to control how they treat you. It's how you try to approach them internally. So there is always a baseline love for people. Using Marcus Aurelius, who was one of the 5 good emperors, which the 5 good emperors was a period of ancient Rome where historians generally agree that the whole point of government was to try to help people, or at least that was like a principal focus or goal of it. Marcus Aurelius would say that people are going to do whatever they're going to do despite you, despite your best efforts to show them a different way, regardless of whether they're receptive, regardless of whether they understand the thought process that you have. It's not up to you to make them behave in the way that is actually the best for them in terms of trying to improve them as human beings. It's up to you to try to approach them that way. And that extends to everyone. To Stoics, there's no border. If we want to get really down to brass tacks, there's no border, there are no countries. Every person like a person that is trying to do, or might even be doing the exact same thing that I'm doing now in a different language, in a different nation, on the other side of the planet. We are doing the sorts of things that we would like to see in one another. And so we have an appreciation that transcends those what we typically think of as boundaries. What you doing? I'm talking for up to 2 hours about an ancient Greco-Roman self-help life advice philosophy that I apply to literally everything that I think, say, and do. And I have Final Fantasy XI in the background because I love it, and I used to be an exclusive Final Fantasy XI streamer. And maybe we'll try it for like a month or so. Like, they just need to fucking release Treasures of Otter Gone so I can get it out of my system. This game that is the embodiment of existential dread is a perfect backtrack for it. Exactly. That's right. It's similar to my heritage of how we see people that are related in the matters of life as an interaction with one another still affects one another. We are all individuals, yet we are able to be supportive to each other, but also know when it's difficult at times to do so if we ourselves may lack the knowledge to do so. Then it becomes, in my heritage views, important to rely to someone more wiser or knowledgeable on the matter to ask for counsel in order to assist others or ourselves. All right. We're gonna talk about some stuff that has affected me recently, and then I'm gonna read any marshmallows that might have come in. ! AMA if you want to send me any completely anonymous questions. Which if you register, I can reply to them personally if you would like me to. Recently, I had a 2.0 debut. If you're not familiar with what a debut is, it's a VTuber thing where I essentially organize lots of information and items and people in the background to put essentially a PowerPoint presentation in front of you that explains me, why I'm streaming, why you should watch me, the argument for that, lore about my character, if any. We established that my character is some sort of like benevolent adjacent entity that exists in a universe that is loosely connected to our own, that is not dissimilar from the Pale from Disco Elysium. I organized people and info for months. I invested a lot of my own money. I spent dozens of hours tweaking my model and equipment, and that process has never stopped, even up to like an hour before the stream started. I'd experienced no internet or tech issues for over a year. Before then, everything was ready to go on the 25th. On start, I started experiencing some of the worst tech and internet issues I'd experienced as I started streaming. The problem was not possible to identify. No fixes seemed to be working, and it wasn't almost until a month after the debut itself that I'd swapped out enough parts or made enough changes for it to seem to matter. The issues were so bad that it forced me to stop streaming entirely for some days, and speaking purely objectively, for what it is, most or all the momentum I'd built running into the debut was crushed. In that same general time frame, my mother went to the hospital with a series of infections. She was either hiding what was going on until it was so severe she had to be hospitalized, or she simply didn't know. I went to the hospital that night packing an overnight bag, and when I got into her room, she was sleeping. Without saying anything, without disturbing her, I sat in the pretty uncomfortable chair next to her and I slept for a bit. I eventually left, went to my dad's, made sure that he was okay as he could be, and slept there. In that same general time frame, my dog became terrified of back-to-back noises of every kind she's super sensitive to. Fire alarms, tripping, construction noises nearby, people doing target practice outside of their house, thunderstorms. She still isn't fully recovered, but she is making slow progress. In that same general time frame, my workplace informed everyone that they were letting go 2/5 of our workforce. This despite being profitable and harping about how great it was to have a full or mutually supportive team. Not only that, but they were rehiring 2/5 to replace them immediately, presumably for cheap. These new hires would not be taking on 2/5 of the work now up in the air. They would be purely performing back-end supportive roles. The 2/5 of people to be let go were asked to train their own replacements. The 2/5 of the work would ultimately fall on the rest of us when we were already at max capacity. All these things happening at the same time is what the Stoics would call finally entering the arena. These are live combat tests of everything you, or me, as a Stoic have been preparing ourselves for, regardless of whether I feel that I was ready or not. Life gives us opponents, in this case many opponents, and they can be bigger and more relentless than you. The test itself isn't evil. Any status given to these things has to be granted by me. If I handle them, if you handle them all at once as best as you can, with what time and skill that you've developed doing so, and the experience that you have to call on any, you'll be better for it. You'll be that much closer to being a Cato the Younger, or Marcus Aurelius, or an Arrius Didymus, or Seneca the Younger, or an Epictetus. I may not never be as great as they are, or were, but the capacity is there, and it depends on me. I have one proof that I can accomplish it, that this is a feasible thought process, that it's not cope. Welcome in, X-Ray Specs, good to see you. Shout out X-Ray Specs. I started getting my character's backstories after I got into D&D. Nice. That sounds cool. You can give me an example of a backstory. I just realized no hydration option. Don't forget to drink water since you've been talking a lot. Don't want you to have a sore throat. I appreciate that, Jade. I'll actually take you up on that. Thanks. Okay. in college, I was about a year or two into Stoic practice. Things weren't going super hot, but my thought was, this is what I've been preparing for. And in that moment, as I was between class and the cafeteria, I felt a wave, a blanket of peace, purpose, happiness, just like that, fold over my brain. Sometime later, I took point on saving the philosophy department I believed was once a waste of time from STEM-obsessed businessmen, risking my graduation because they were the types of people that were installed and had the power to decide whether or not that I would graduate. I happened to win. I happened to succeed. That was not my intention. The chances were extremely low. The philosophy department was kept alive, at least for a time, while I was there. I felt a drive and a strength that was totally overwhelming. Almost like my body had been preoccupied by the purpose that I was aiming for. That Stoic is still in there. That person is in you. They just need to be drawn out. Let me see if any marshmallows came in. Do you have any official training in Stoicism? You speak with the air of an educator. Have you received an education in the social sciences? So, in college, well, before college, I was essentially like a blank slate. I went to college because that's just what you do, right? That's just what you did. Is that people were like, you graduate high school, you go to college. And with that, so I was like, okay, I guess I have to go to college now. What do I go to college for? I guess that people are responsive to me. I suppose that people understand that I'm an effective or active listener. That they are comfortable opening up to me about things that are really sensitive to them. So I guess I'm supposed to be a psychologist. That was not I want to be a psychologist. I dreamed to be a psychologist. I actually had no dream at all. As depressing as that might sound, I didn't have a dream. I just wanted to. I had enough trouble just existing. I was like, what room was there for a dream when you're getting like bullied, like deeply bullied, basically every hour that you're in school. There's a lot for you to go through in a short amount of time. I can only imagine the amount of distress you had to go through that during the whole week too, but it is correct to see it as an arena. My way of calling it is slice ordeals or face challenges to see what we've gone through allows us to take on the struggle with what we currently know and have, a battle of resilience in the face of adversity. Have you heard of talks here and there about people asking why is there no ethics or moral classes in school? I hear that question from time to time. I'm curious about your thoughts as I wish to compare notes without influencing yours on this. I'll finish with my thought process on this and then I'll answer your question. So I went to college because that's just what you did, asterisk. And I was like, I guess I was supposed to be a psychologist. So I took psychology classes, and for most of it, I started to disassociate with it because 90% of it was how does the human brain work on a physical standpoint so that you can give people drugs effectively that they might need. And my thought process was that it's fine if people have like a chemical imbalance where they could benefit from medication, but I want less of that. I want to talk with people with where they're at and where their fears are and where they want to see themselves. But it felt like it was nothing but like how do you effectively treat via drugs the emotional state that the person's experiencing. But I rolled with it, right? Because again, I was like, I guess I'm supposed to be a psychologist. Up until the philosophy class that I mentioned before. And then after I started feeling better, after I started feeling hopeful, after I started feeling drive, I was like, okay, well, I guess that I'm not supposed to be a psychologist because it's not bringing me any satisfaction. I'm not connecting with anything that I'm reading or experiencing at all. This philosophy thing is the only thing that's had any kind of material impact, or substantial, I should say, impact on my life up to this point. So I'm just going to chase the fuck out of this. I'm just going to chase the fuck out of this, man. Interesting. I went through something similar in college. I'm in social work at school, and there are plenty of morals there, but no one else cares. Drugs are great, but they need to be used in tandem with therapy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I support that. So I swapped from psychology as a major, and did what most people in America would suggest that you should never do, which is risking yourself. Not that there's anything wrong with this. But risking yourself of not getting a well-paying job as a philosophy major. But the thing is that at that point, I had never seen anyone. I'd never seen anyone around me that seemed to be happy, even if they had a well-paying job. So I was like, this is the only thing that's brought me any kind of peace or contentment at all. So I need to see where this goes. So I swapped my psychology major to philosophy. I took up double minors in leadership and sociology. I was originally trying to become a residence director because I was a resident assistant for 3 out of my 4 years in college. I enjoyed it. The students relied on me. They spoke with me. I got a lot of counseling practice through that. And I was like, okay, so residence director is a perfect role for me because it means that I have to essentially be available 24/7 in order to help people out, and that's what drives me. Now, residence director. Now, I didn't become a residence director. I really tried. I really tried to be a residence director, but at the time that I really pushed for it, I had been out of the higher education loop for just long enough that it was like I got really close once or twice, but it didn't go beyond that point. I even got as close as someone saying like you're due for like a background check and drug test. So like I thought that it was in the bag up until the last minute. Holy moly, Final Fantasy XI, it's true, it's true. Welcome in, Scott K, good to see you. Tell me about the Dark Ballads of Horizon's Dev Hell and the sinister tales of the rebates that have gone missing in the dark halls of Ironheart Jar. I like your funny words, Magic Man. I like them. I just want my Blue Mage. Just give me my Blue Mage. I don't care what you do with the rest of Ottergon. I don't even care if Besieged works. And I'm one of those weirdos that's like, I just want Besieged. Just give me Besieged. Give me Besieged, but more importantly, give me my Blue Mage. That's all I want. It really is that simple. Just give it to me. I've lost track of my stream chat. Give me a moment. There you are. Stop. It's trying to like bond with everything. And put you back over here. Stop. So, no, there was a time where I also said to myself that I was going to become a philosophical counselor, which is a real thing. And that never manifested between the jobs that I had. I could have made a push for it, but I was honestly just doing everything that I could in order to try to make the most of what roles that I had in the moment. And I tried to force into being the energy needed to take on additional classes and things, and at the time I couldn't. There was enough that was already going on, and I had stress tested my brain and what I can physically handle before, and I was already pushing those limits at the time. I'll play retail that has a better Blue Mage. It might have a better Blue Mage. I believe you when you say that. But listen, I will say what I will tell you what I tell people when they're like, you should play Guild Wars or you should play Final Fantasy XIV. Like, the want is there. I do feel the want for it. The thing is that because of any free time that I have is dedicated to streaming. So if I have free time, it typically means that I'm streaming or prepping for streams. So if I start playing a MMO, for any reason, whatever it is, that it means that I become essentially that type of streamer. I change to a MMO streamer. It's why I couldn't play Foxhole. I tried to give Foxhole a chance. That game has its own issues, some severe issues actually, but playing it is like a full-time thing for some people, literally. All right, let me read your question. Reading. Have you heard of talks here and there about why people ask why is there no ethics or moral classes in schools? I hear that question from time to time. I'm curious about your thoughts as I wish to compare notes without influencing yours on this. At least from an American perspective, it's because of that culturally instilled or developed idea that is incorrect, that those types of things are political, which they are in like in an abject sense. The idea that like, okay, well, what if my ethics are different than your ethics? Or what do you mean by being a good person? Or what do you mean by not being a bad person? What do you consider? What if I consider a person that is bad to be different than your definition of what a bad person is? And so it's easier, although not correct, it's easier to just not do it. It's easier to just teach people STEM, which if I don't remember what the abbreviation is. What is it? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, things that are tonally objective. It's easier to just teach that or teach history lessons than it is to say like this is why it's worth it to try to be a good person, even if it doesn't always net you materially the best results. Welcome in, Felicity. Shout out, Felicity Ryan. Final Fantasy 14 is pretty casual, but it's a lot of content to catch up on if you're late to the party. It's almost 15 years old, yeah. I don't want to think about that. Don't let me think about that. Don't let me think about the fact that it's 15 years old. What the fuck, man? You're right, though. You're right. Actually, I miss... I'm like the only person on Earth to feel this way. But I do miss 1.0. 1.0 Final Fantasy 14. I miss it. I miss how shitty it was. I miss how much of a grind it was. I also miss how it looked visually. Like, some would argue that the graphics now are better than it was during 1.0. But I feel like they went for more of a Final Fantasy 11 aesthetic in the 1.0. And because I'm a huge hoe for Final Fantasy 11 in general, it clicked for me. I don't know. I don't agree that you needed to hit a button prompt to do an auto attack, or what we would consider an auto attack. I do agree. And there was also other hell. There was also other hell, like the fact that, and this is real, the fact that there was no auction house. There wasn't an auction house. So what you had to do was go to this giant building in each of the major cities, and there would be 20 floors, and they were all organized according to like general ideas of a thing, like leatherworking or heavy armor or melee weapons or blacksmithing, things like that. I'm not doing it justice, but that was the idea. But anyone could go to any floor and sell anything, and there was no way to search for whatever people had. You had to be lucky. So like, let's say that you wanted to get a new sword, you would go to like blacksmithing, right? You go to blacksmithing level, and then you would move in like 2 inches, and 2 inches would spawn maybe like 15 models. Like 15 models, and then you would have to individually check each person to have a chance that they have what you're looking for. Eventually they caved, and they added like the world's shittiest like search engine, where it was like, but all that it would tell you was that the thing that you're looking for is on a level but you still had to like load chunks of people. You still had to load chunks of people to try to find what you were looking for. It was crazy. To be honest with you, it was wild. Welcome in, Callista. Good to see you. Shout out Callista Klein. Callista Klein 1. Shout out Callista Klein 1. There we are. Started 14 in 2010 on the PS1. I agree on the 1.0 graphics. No, 14 was PC only for 1.0, which was 2010 and closed in 2012. PS3 came in 2013 with the release of Realm Reborn. Let me check my inbox. I want to make sure I'm not actually missing anything. Does Stoicism replace religion, or can they go hand in hand? They can supplement each other for sure. Christianity, like obviously I was not there at the time because I'm not actually a vampire despite what people say about me. But I wasn't there when Christianity first started happening generally. But there is a lot that was drawn or believed to have been drawn from Stoicism to become part of Christianity or religion in general, because you say religion. But yes, if you believe in a higher power, you can borrow as much or as little from Stoicism in order to supplement the teachings of that religion as much as you want. There are certain incompatibilities in the original design framework of Stoicism that makes it difficult to incorporate into like a religious thought process, such as the idea that we can't know. This is a Stoic original position. We can't know what the nature of nature is because it's beyond us. It's unfathomable. We have a shard of reason, something that allows us to have the capability of choice and therefore godliness inside of us, but that nature is one of four states. Either everything is complete chaos and nothing matters. Either everything is complete chaos and nothing matters, in which case we should be thankful that we have something that is an accidental property in us, the ability to choose, the ability to have attributes that allow us to resist things that are very difficult, that are just part of daily life, and we should be content with that we have this accidental piece of ourselves that's self-directing and capable of drawing positivity and constructiveness from itself. Or that nature, that God is just cause and effect in and of itself. That it's a butterfly effect happening literally all the time, and that while we can't control the end result, we become ourselves part of the causes and effects. So we can try to steer things how we believe would be conducive to ourselves or positive for ourselves and others, but that ultimately it's outside of our control because we're just a guy. We are a meat person in meat space, and if something is bigger than us in this meat space and it tries to decide to do something to us, then necessarily our meat forms are affected by that, right? If we're not bigger than it, it is bigger than us, and then we should be thankful again that we have this self-directing element in ourselves. Or that nature is alive. That nature is alive, the universe is alive, it's self-directing, it's ordering itself, it's establishing patterns that may not what we would consider to be helpful to us on an individual basis, mind you, but that it is establishing these overarching patterns under which, and rules and laws, like nature's laws, that we have no choice but to operate under, and so we can recognize these patterns and align ourselves with these patterns to the best of our ability. Welcome in, Jay. Welcome in. How are you doing? Jay has an extremely hot model and an extremely hot voice, and is also very interesting, and is a cyberpunk motorcyclist, and you should follow her on everything. Jai VT. And allegedly, she has fixed her internet issues that were causing her something like a 40-second delay. So that's hot. That also is hot. Remember, it's not a cult. It isn't a cult. Just because I'm literally projecting a flame out of my hand does not mean that we're in a cult. Just because I have a cultist emote, it's irony. It's irony. It doesn't mean anything. The five minute delay? Damn. What the fuck? Shit. And the last premise is that there is, like, that nature is sentient. That, like, the example I gave you before is that it's kind of like a plant. But that it is sentient, it's self-directing, it's purposefully ordering things inside of itself according to some grander design that we can only try to suss out. That is the closest thing to what most people would think of when they say God, or gods, or multiple. The Stoics would say all the time that you should try to get yourself in a position where, if there is a God, that you earn their respect, that you show that you are thankful for having this ability to reason, for the ability to choose, and that is, you know, that's the thought process. They say that even if there isn't a God, that you should be thankful that you have this same principle, this thing that is capable of driving you, of making you feel self-fulfilled, even if everything around you is falling apart. Yay, cult. It's not a cult. I'm telling you, it's not a cult. It's not. Okay? You need to chat. You need to fucking relax. It's not a cult. Just because I made you drink my blood ritualistically before you come into the Discord does not mean that we're a cult. It just means that we have very strict entry requirements. Not a cult. It's not. I'm also not a vampire. Get it twisted. Wait, is this a cult? No, there's nothing to sign up. Don't give her the brochure. Stop. Oh my God, you did it. Okay, I know. I know that this. Until you did that, I completely forgot that I had this as an option. Before, I know that this looks really culty now. I know that this looks super culty. It's not a cult. It's so not a cult, guys. It's so not a cult. Not sure if cult or not. It's fucked up. It's crazy. What have I been transported to the past? To play the shitty games that suck ass? Yeah. Welcome in, Cyber. Good to see you. I mean, you're robot, so? Does that mean that technically you could snatch his arms? I mean, you could try. I might take your arms instead. It's what we call the technical difficulties team. I preemptively shaved my head, but that's on me. Scott, I know that I don't, this might be Riz, this might be Glaze. Like, I unironically, in a private conversation between you and me, I think you would be able to rock a shaved head. I think that you would be able to. In fact, I'm getting kind of wide just thinking about it, to be honest. I don't know what that says about me. That looks amazing. This flavor rate is so good. Ooh, that's dicey. What do you mean? Ayo, an arm for an arm. Welcome in, Hard Socket. Hard Socket has a lovely voice. A hot voice, even. It's very nice to listen to. IMO. LOL. Let me check my inbox. I think something came in. So yeah, see, the ultimate answer is that Stoicism can work with religion. There's no issue with that. If you take Stoicism to its logical, not logical. Let me back up on that. Let me punch, I didn't mean to say that word. if you take it as a system, as a complete system by itself, it says that there's no need to have the respect of a god or gods. And it maintains that because of the premise that you already have all of these setup that you need, all the capacity that you need in order to do right by God anyway. And that you don't need God's approval, because if you're being a good person, you're gonna get the approval anyway. Nope, ugly voice, he's lying. Okay, well, we're gonna see about that literally right now. As soon as I get as soon as I get this. Hang on. Twitch.tv/heartsocket. You better start deleting your VODs, because I'm coming.
Look, Bobo, I found something.
Into the cart with it.
Oops.
Oh, baby, that's where the car. That's where the car.
I'm sorry, I have like 0 depth perception.
That's how the car.
Is there one of you singing? That's what I want. What's this?
I don't know what just happened to me.
Also another hydration check.
Hold on, where are we going?
Okay, maybe that wasn't the best example. You just have to be there. You just have to you just have to be there. I will stretch. Thank you. Oh. Ah. Oh. Oh. Oh yeah. Actually needed that. Oh. Okay. Back to it, baby. Back to it. Hopefully that answered the question. My hair's taking care of itself, so we'll see how hot I get. Just increasingly hot over time. I mean, I started shaving my head a long time ago. People have said that they enjoy the thought of me having hair. And I know that none of this means anything to you because, well, because of what you're looking at. But I've been shaving my head for half my life, something like that. And it's just it makes it so much easier. I don't have to pay any hairdressers or anything. I just do the do, and it works. And I honestly, if I let it run for too long, I start to get bushy. I start to get really bushy. Like really, really bushy. And then it kind of like fans out afterward. And I don't want me to see that. I'm fine with it just being extremely easy to take care of. Bud, no you. No, that's you. So, a lot of the difficulties I described to you before are things that are just part of causes and effects. There is nothing that happened to me that I would describe as being like an actual evil thing. Even though it frustrated some of my like material hopes. It's just stuff. That's all that it is. There's going to be a point in time, there has already been points in time where I've stopped thinking about anything besides my dog because I can't ignore her because she deserves the whole planet. There's been times where I've already stopped thinking about what I was really feeling in those moments of frustration threatening to pierce through all the barriers that I had set up over time to stop that from happening. There's been even worse events that have happened to me in the past, and I'll spare you them. But the idea, the principle remains the same. Is that there is a version of me, of you, that has already gotten past these very negative experiences that you may be experiencing now or will experience in the future. That you haven't been alone in experiencing these things. There's been countless people over countless years that have experienced exactly the same things that you are. And either they adapted to what's happened or they've just been able to work through it. And then in either case, they're able to use those negative situations in order to build things like endurance and courage and patience. It was lovely getting to hear from you. Have a lovely day. You too. Goodbye. Goodbye. All right. So how much time we got? I have like 40 minutes or so. Let me check the inbox one more time. If you've enjoyed this, make sure you hit that follow button. If you like this a lot a bit, consider subscribing. Every single dollar that makes its way into the channel helps support things like this that I do. It makes it easier to do things like this in the future. I'm getting bombarded with Discord messages. I recall an old Latin quote. I will butcher that. Which I recall someone means I am human and nothing human is alien to me. Exactly. So we're gonna take a break now so I can rest my voice. Chicken? What do you mean chicken? Are you gonna say chicken jockey? I like how it's a meme. It's a meme that isn't even funny. But because it's gone way past the point of being funny, it's funny again. What are you saying chicken for? Want Spanx on them buns? Is that what you want? Thank you for the head pats. I appreciate you. All right, I will see you in half an hour probably. I'm gonna swap over stream title and all that, and then I'll get everybody into a room. And then we'll play some Core Keeper for the first time ever. Wow. Wow. First time Core Keeper. All right. I'll see you in 30.